Great. Thank you all for being so on time. I appreciate it. I mean, it's funny. That was part of my thinking. I thought, if we do this for 20 minutes, you can't really afford to be late, right? Because then you're just going to miss the whole thing. And we'll make it short and sweet.
Yeah.
You have your Gemaras ready?
Yeah.
Great. Did anybody give it any thought to the question, one of the questions we asked yesterday, which is what the Mishnah taught us, that if he's in the Yer Miklat, Sham, he's got to be there. The Mishnah drilled that point home, right? Very, very clear. Yes, you have to be there, and you can't go anywhere else. So that means under all circumstances, and the Mishnah makes that point very clear by saying, even if he's got testimony, and even if it's life-saving kinds of testimony, so then he still can't go free. So we're used to understanding pikuach nefesh, something that just came up in the last discussion within the last hour. Pikuach nefesh is a pretty big deal by the Jewish people, by Torah, and we know that ordinarily we do violate certain conditions to save a life. So what's the why the exception here by the Rotzeach and the Yer Miklat? Okay, here's what I found. The Or Sameach, Rav Meir Simcha of Dvinsk, right? Our host. He says like this. He writes like this. He has a comment. The Or Sameach is a commentary on the Rambam's Mishnah Torah. What great book is not a commentary on the Rambam's Mishnah Torah? I'm just right now. I'm just preparing something. I just looked into a Rav Chaim Brisker, Rav Chaim Soloveitchik, who has his great work on the Rambam's Mishnah Torah. In the last century, probably every major figure had some kind of major book on the Rambam's Mishnah Torah. Anyway, here's what the Or Sameach writes in Hilchos Rotzeach. He says, "Ein lanu losif achrei mitzvos yotzer hateva choker klayos v'leiv." And I get to the punchline. I'll paraphrase it, because I'm going to lose you if I go through the whole thing. Here's what he said. He says that he goes back to discussion. Moshe, you'll remember this. Nathan, Eitan, and Yitzchak Chaim, you might not, but we had a whole discussion, and we'll resume it here too, about the Goel Adam, and something that's troublesome and intriguing. Why does the Torah enable him to kill the Rotzeach? I mean, isn't that what we call, quintessentially bad Torah midos, vengeance and anger and the like? So we talked about it along the lines of Eishes Yifas Toar, just like the Torah gives a concession to the Yetzer Hara, to a person in wartime. So to here, somebody who just lost their close of kin, and there's a discussion in the post-game how close it has to be. You have to be a Goel Adam, you have to be one of the 7 closest family members, or could it be anybody who's the next of kin in Hilchos Nachalos and inheritance law? That's another interesting discussion. Am I going too fast and throwing too much at you? Is this okay? You're following? Yeah, great. Yeah. So, but why allow the Goel Adam to do this? And we said that there's some kind of concession to the anger, the burning, the chema of the Goel Adam, that he might come to kill the Rotzeach. And if the Torah is concerned, the Rotzeach is protected, and comes to Or Sameach, and he connects these ideas brilliantly. It's one of these chidushim that you see and think, oh, wow, I like that a lot. And you want to turn to the guy sitting next to you and tell him the chiddush, but he's not holding in a sugya, so it's hopeless, so don't bother. I tried, but, Anyway, you're here, so here I get to tell you. Ari and Nathan, it's a reunion here. Our Gemara Shiur from 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
4 years ago. So it was. Sorry, I just got off the track. So here goes. So the Or Sameach connects these. He says, it's true. If we allow the Rotzeach to go free and testify, perhaps he'll save a life. But he might lose his life too. Because even if we create what I described yesterday as perhaps a Torah buffer zone, a safety zone around him, don't touch him, Goel Adam. Yeah, but the Goel Adam is an unpredictable, flighty kind of a character. He might anyway. And so as much as you might want to argue that there's pikuach nefesh in allowing the Rotzeach to go testify, maybe in the other direction, there's also pikuach nefesh in keeping him safely ensconced in his Yer Miklat. That's great, no? Okay, that's how the Or Sameach suggests it. Not everybody likes it. Not everybody's on board. The Tiferes Yisrael, one of the great commentaries of the 1700s, he doesn't see it. He sees more that if it's Pikuach Nefesh, the Torah and the poskim would do everything in their power to make sure that the Rotzeach would be protected so the Gol Adam couldn't touch him, so that we could save everybody's life. Meaning we would go to the nth degree to plan accordingly so there wouldn't be a Pikuach Nefesh issue on either side of the equation. Try to save as many lives as we could. So he's not buying the Or Sameach's logic. Okay. By the way, he predates the Or Sameach, but he considered the same idea and rejected it out of hand. The Or Sameach, I think, says it over persuasively. You can go look it up there. Let's resume our Mishnah. I, as always, encourage. Yeah, go ahead, Nathan.
A Rotzeach is a person who accidentally
yes, thank
somebody?
you. I'm so used to, we've already developed a code for all this, having said Shiur now for several months. We've been in this sugya. So, but by all means, please ask me to define and qualify whatever I'm talking about. The Rotzeach means murderer, but we're referring to the guy who, like you say, is the Rotzeach B'Shogeg, who inadvertently murders and then finds himself in the city of refuge, the Miklat. So if you have questions on anything we did yesterday or in the past, you'll let me know. You'll ask, but otherwise I'm going to continue. We're in the middle of the Mishnah. We left off with all the Shams. So Sham Tehe Diraso, Sham Tehe Misaso, Sham Tehe Kvuraso. That was the end of the narrow lines. And we're in the beginning of the wide lines. At the very beginning, it says Kishem. Anybody not see it? Here we go. We have a new law. This is one of those easier missionaries organizationally because it's broken down into little subgroups, little units. This is a new unit of a new halacha. Kishem She'ir Koletis, just like the city gives some kind of refuge to our hapless killer, protecting him from the Gol Adam. Kach Tchuma Kolet. We have an extra leniency, a little bit, gets to broaden his horizons quite literally. The whole area around the Tchum, around the city, also counts as refuge. That's a safety, it's an invisible safety buffer zone. And the Gol Adam is not allowed to touch him there either. And that, of course, will lead to a whole discussion about Tchum. Tchum, which is a sugya where we think of more, we associate correctly more with Shabbos, Hilchos Shabbos, because everybody has 2,000 amos in every direction around his location, whether he's in a field and he has literally just 2,000 amos, or he starts in a city and the 2,000 amos extend beyond the bounds of the city. And there's some leniencies, a karpef and other kinds of leniencies that you can add to your relative area, your district. But he's got this whole area to flex with.
Wait, Rabbi, what does last two words mean?
Kach tchuma kolet. So too, it's borders. It's the tchum, which means the borders. It's not borders really. It's the region around it. You have the city walls, but the tchum extends 2,000 amos plus beyond there. So he can go 2,000 amos plus beyond the actual city and still be afforded good refuge. And kolet is the word like miklat. It's the same word to give him refuge, to protect him. The Mishnah goes on. We're in the middle of that first wide line. It says, Rotzeach sheyotza chutz l'tchum u'metzal gol adam. We kind of were expecting this, almost inevitability. If a killer left that tchum, and he's gone out of the boundaries, and the Gol Adam, the Redeemer blood, will find him, then it's a machlokas about what actually the status of things is. Pay attention, got to keep track of each of these details. Rabbi Yossi Glili Omer, his view is the follows. He says, mitzvah v'yad Gol Adam, it's actually a mitzvah for the Gol Adam to kill him. We haven't heard this idea yet. We've talked about he has a heter to kill him. We have not talked about the idea, the prospect that it may be so much as a mitzvah for him to go and actually kill the Rotzeach. This, by the way, if you look at the source of this, it's a pasuk in Bamidbar. The pasuk says explicitly, "V'ratzach gol adam es rotzeach." The gol adam kills, or he murders, the murderer. And so Rabbi Yossi Glili simply reads that verse literally. He says, yeah, that the Torah is mandating him. That's the right thing to do. We'll have to explain what's behind that. And then he adds another idea that we have not considered before, Urushus biyad kol adam. And it's permitted for anybody else to kill him as well, if he goes outside the bounds of the Miklat. Anybody have a notion what in the world's going on here? What justifies, A, that it's a mitzvah? I mean, again, we've been saying all along that it's okay, you can, but a mitzvah? And then we've only been restricting this to the Goel Adam. He's got that bloodlust, he's angry, and so on. We never considered the possibility that you or me, any of us, anybody could go, and if he goes outside the boundaries, he can get killed. And we're permitted to do that. Any guess? If I introduce the concept of rodef, does that mean anything to anybody?
Yeah, it's when you
Go ahead, Moshe.
I mean, if somebody were to, maybe the classic example is somebody comes to your house, and like you have the presumption that they might kill you, so you kill them. Right,
that's an example of a rodef. That case is one that Bezras Hashem is in the Gemara we'll be learning next year, which is the 8th chapter of Sanhedrin. It's the name of the chapter is Ben Soramora, but the topic is the Bab Machteres, the guy who comes tunneling into your house in the middle of the night. But a rodef could be any number of people. We'll consider a rodef in my 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 9 o'clock Israel time, Shiur tomorrow night. I'm talking about the trolley question, and the topic of rodef comes up there. We'll quote the Mishnah in Olos, where a fetus who's endangering the mother's life could be aborted because it's got the status of a rodef. It's endangering her life. So a lot of examples of a rodef. When Yigal Amir assassinated the prime minister in 1995, Yitzhak Rabin, so he held halachically that he had the status of being a rodef, since he was endangering the lives of the Jewish people by negotiating with Arafat and the Palestinians. That's rodef. So if the Goel Adam if the Rotzeach has that kind of status, he's a quasi-rodef. He was a murderer. And on a certain level, we say about a rodef, we say, Ein lo damim, he doesn't have any blood. He's not really a human. So killing him is not killing a person. It's not murder. So we're saying, because by definition, Rotzeach, his only legitimate existence, as we just established very definitively in this Mishnah, is to be in their miklat. Go to your place, we tell the animal, right? But we're telling them, that's your place, you're not allowed to leave there. If he leaves there, he's not a human being. It's fair game. Anybody who wants to go to it, and the Goel Adam, the Torah is actually telling you to enforce this idea. You keep that Rotzeach in the Miklat, and he should know this. He's going to be there. That's quite a psychological. That's a deterrent to leaving. Yeah, that's Rabbi Yosef Glili. Rabbi Akiva argues. Rabbi Akiva Omer, finishing the Mishnah. Rishus biyad Goel Adam. This is what we've been used to saying. This is what we assumed. And indeed, if you see the little zayin there, that indicates that's the halacha. That's how the Rambam brings it down. It's permissible for the Goel Adam to kill him. V'chol Adam chayavin alav. Anybody else, you or me, or the guy who runs the grocery store down the street, any of us, if we were to kill him, we'd be chayav. What do I have to do with him? It's not my business, right? So it'd be regular cold-blooded murder. Chas v'sholom.
So Rav Yossi said anybody can kill him, and Rabbi Akiva said only the Goel Adam, or
they argue on 2 points. The first point, Rabbi Yossi Glili says that it's a mitzvah for the Goel Adam, and Rabbi Akiva disagrees and says, no, it's reshus. He's allowed to, but it's not a mitzvah. He doesn't want to. You don't have to. And Rabbi Akiva, and on the second point, Rabbi Yossi Galili says other people can kill him, and Rabbi Akiva says other people cannot kill him. They're chayiv if they do. Two points of argument. Good question, and good to clarify these things to make it solid in our minds. This is, this is not the way I necessarily always teach, but I think for this forum and for the way we're doing this, I think it's fine. We'll cover more ground this way, maybe even make a Shiur motion next to Elul. And I'm doing this very much in Bekia's style, but I really want to get clarity. I want, do you feel, okay, at least I have some understanding. Realize there's so much more we could be doing with this, but we're not. Gemara, my time. The Gemara asks a question on the very first ruling that we saw yesterday, that when the Kohen Gadol dies after the killer's sentence, the killer never has to go to their miklat. Like it's as if the Kohen Gadol died as if he was in their miklat. It was once the sentencing took place, anytime thereafter, Kohen Gadol dies, even immediately, he goes free. So Gemara asks, my time. Well, what's the reason for this? So Omer Abaye says, Kal v'chomer, it's an a priori argument, right? Very logical deduction. He says, Uma mishagola kfar yotze achshav mishalo gala eladin shalo yigle. That's no formulation. If someone who's already in the Ir Miklat would go out when the Kohen Gadol dies, well then isn't it true that someone who's not yet even in the Ir Miklat, shouldn't he certainly go out? He's assuming that it's harder to liberate a guy who's in the Ir Miklat. He's there, he's stuck, sham, and getting him out of there is like one big enterprise. So a guy who never even went there in the first place, just go home, buddy. You're all set. He sees that as a straightforward Kal v'chomer. You could ask about this Kal v'chomer. Tosfos do.
Wait, Rabbi, can you retranslate that?
Yeah, sure. My time. What's the reason? Kal v'chomer. It's a logical deduction. Uma mishagala kfar yotze achshav. And if someone who's already in Golus, in the Miklat, he goes out now. Kfar yotze achshav. He would go out now if the Kohen Gadol dies. Well, then Mishalo Gala, somebody who'd never even been to their Miklat, he was just sentenced, but he hasn't even been there yet. Eino Din, isn't it a Kal v'chomer, Shalo Yigle, that he shouldn't be exiled at all? Tosfos has a problem. I can't resist introducing some of the meta ideas around here. Tosfos has a problem that you could use the same Kal v'chomer to teach that from that logic, he should go free if the Kohen Gadol dies even before he's sentenced. Straightforward. So you have to go look at Tosfos to figure out why the Mishnah explicitly says no. The Kohen Gadol dies earlier, and there's no Kohen Gadol that gets appointed in his place. The guy goes to the Miklat and he never goes free. Okay. That's the first section. The Gemara has a question. Vidilma, you'll ask me if you lose your place. We have one more minute, so I'm going to ask this question, and we'll finish this unit. Vidilma hai degola ikaperle, but maybe this one who was Galus, who was exiled, got kapara. Something we talked about at the very beginning of the whole Masechta. He got atonement by going to exile. And there he's actually in a better position than the guy who's never even been to the Ir Miklat. Remember, the Ir Miklat has that quality. It gives a person good kapara. The guy who was sentenced but never went there, he didn't get kapara. So he's not quite as advantaged. He says, Hai de lo gala lo. But this guy, again, who wasn't in exile then, he just was sentenced, but he never made it to the Ir Miklat before the Kohen died, he never got kapara. So maybe the Kohen Gadol's death shouldn't do anything for him. He should go to the Ir Miklat, get his proper kapara. That's what the Gemara's question is. Gemara answers. Going too fast, Moshe? Getting all the words?
Yeah, I think so.
Great. Moshe I see is very meticulous. He wants to get everything down, which I strongly encourage. So That's why I'm taking time for it. Anybody else who has the same question, by all means, ask. Midi galus ka mikapra. So the Gemara says, no. You get it wrong. Is it that the galus itself is what gives the kapara? No. Mrs. Cohen who the mechapra. It's the death of the Cohen that gives him his kapara. Meaning the question presumed that the very act of going to and being in their miklat, that's what got his kapara. It's certainly part of the process. But comes our Gemara and counters, defending Abaye's point, and it says, no, actually the death of the Kohen Gadol kind of rounds the circle and gives a sense of closure. And at that point, he goes free. And if that happens immediately at his sentences, at his sentencing, well, then that was Hashem's will that should take place. And as such, he got his kapara. So the question disappears. Tomorrow night, Bezras Hashem, we're going to continue from this, and we'll take up the question that I posed yesterday, and we saw it first in the Mishnah, the second unit in the Mishnah, of the second Kohen Gadol. Why should his death make a difference? After all, he wasn't alive to daven for the well-being of he was alive, but he wasn't the Kohen Gadol to daven that the murder shouldn't take place. Why should his death somehow be a part of this discussion? We'll talk about this tomorrow. Bezras Hashem. Any questions? Good. Thanks for being solid and here and making this happen.
Actually,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Can I just go over a couple words again? The second,
go ahead. Which words?
The second line of the Gemara, like halfway through, Hakshi.
The second line of the Gemara, halfway through, Achshav, now.
No. And then Midi, which is like third line.
Yeah,
Like,
it's one of these words that doesn't translate so smoothly, but Midi Galus, do you think the Galus?
All right. Thank you, Rabbi.
Is it the Galus, gives a kapara? No. Yeah. Pleasure. All right. Good to see you. See you tomorrow night. Bezras Hashem.